Good evening, everybody. It's me again. It's Russell Mills. It is August 4th on a Saturday, 2018. I want to say hello. Thank you for anybody that has viewed or watched any of my videos. I appreciate that. Hopefully, fully and thoroughly. I hope I don't expect everybody to agree with my statements or whatever I wrote down or whatever the case is. My opinion, my whatever. I have a voice. I'm a human being. I have a right to speak how I feel. Tonight, I wanted to talk about presidents that owned slaves. 12. It was actually 12 presidents that actually owned slaves. So I'm going to write them down. I'm actually going to read what I wrote. How many presidents who owned slaves? This is a list of the presidents in the United States. Slavery in the United States was legal from its beginning as a nation, having been practiced in the British North America from early colonial days. The 13th Amendment to the United Constitution formally abolished slavery throughout the practice, effectively ended only after the end of the American Civil War. Okay. In total, 12 presidents owned slaves at some point in their lives. 8 of them owned slaves while serving as presidents. George Washington was the first president to own slaves, including while he was president. Zachary Taylor was the last president to own slaves during his pregnancy. And Ulysses S. Grant was the last president to have owned a slave at the same point in his life. Slave owning was common among early presidents of the first 12. Only John Adams, which was the second president of the United States, and his son John Quincy Adams, which was the sixth president of the United States, never owned slaves, although 2 of the others, Martin Van Buren, who was the 8th president from 1837 to 1841, a founder of the Democratic Party, and William Henry Harrison was an American military officer, politician, and the 9th president of the United States. He died of pneumonia 31 days into his term, making it the shortest tenure in U.S. and did not own slaves while serving as a president. So number 1, again, I'm going to just, this is number 1, President George Washington. Approximately number of slaves held 317 while in office from 1789 to 1797. Washington was a major slave holder before, during, and after his presidency. His will freed his slaves pending the death of his widow, Martha Washington, though she freed his slaves within a year of his death. President number 3, the third president of the United States, President Thomas Jefferson. He had over 600 plus slaves. And he was in office from 1801 to 1809. Since Jefferson was a major slaveholder, but opposed the institution throughout his life and promoted legislation to free slaves in his will. Most historians believe that Jefferson fathered multiple children with his slave Sally Hemings, the half-sister of the late wife Martha Wales Skelton. So, number 4, President James Madison. He held 100 plus slaves, and he was in office from 1809 to 1817. Mason proposed the 5th compromise. Okay. Number 5, James Monroe. He had 75 slaves. He was in office from 1817 to 1825. He was the 5th president. Andrew Jackson. He had over 200 plus slaves. He was in office from 1829 to 1839. And he was number 5. Number 5 is let me see this. Number 8, Martin Van Buren. He was an American statesman who served as the 8th president, a founder of the Democratic Party. He had And William Henry Harris, he had 11 slaves, and he was as the first governor of Indiana Territory. And we had John Taylor. He was the 10th president of the United States, 70 plus slaves, 1841 to 1845, after briefly being the 10th vice president. James K. Polk, he had 25 slaves. From 1845 to 1849, he was 11th president of the United States, and he was previously the Speaker of the House of Representatives from 1835 to 1839, and Governor of Tennessee, 1839 to 1841. Zachary Taylor, he was the 12th president of the United States. He had 150 slaves. He was in office from 1849 to 1850, 12th president of the United States. So although Taylor owned slaves throughout his life, that's the key word, throughout his life, he generally resisted attempts to expand slavery in the territories. After his death, there was rumors that slave advocates had poisoned him. Tests of his body over 100 years later had been inconclusive. Andrew Johnson, he was president. He was 17th president of the United States. Says Andrew Johnson was the 17th president of the United States, serving from 1865 to 1869. Johnson became president as he was vice president at the time of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, a Democrat who ran with Lincoln on the National Union ticket. He owned eight slaves. Says okay. Says Johnson owned a few slaves and was very supportive of James K. Polk slavery policies. As a military governor in Tennessee, he convinced Abraham Lincoln to exempt that area from the Emancipation Proclamation. Ulysses S. Grant. He was the 18th president of the United States. Ulysses S. Grant was an American soldier and statesman who served as the commander general of the Army and the 18th president of the United States, the highest position in the military and the government of the United States. Although he later served as a general in the Union Army, his wife Julia had control of 4 slaves during the war gifted to her by her father. However, it is unclear if she actually was granted legal ownership. This is the key. Legal ownership of them or merely temporary custody. It says all would be freed by the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. She chose to free them at the time, even though the proclamation did not apply to her state of Missouri. It says Grant is known to have personally owned only one slave, William Jones, from 1857 to 1859. Says Grant freed Jones rather than selling him despite financial need. So this is crazy. So this is why I say to brothers out there and black folks out there, we need to know our history because history is so important. I'm trying to learn. That's the one thing about the internet that I like, I could say, is that we can look up information. Is everything going to always be accurate? No, of course not. You know what I'm saying? But is it good to have history and to know about certain things? That's why I try to write things down. You know what I'm saying? And spread the message because sometimes these young kids out here, they don't know, and I have to teach stuff like this to my son a little bit more. I know the schools teach out some of the stuff, and that's fine. But history is very important because it's good to teach. It's good to teach the right history. See, the problem is with us in America that we've got taught the wrong history. So that's why I say we need to learn and dig and ask questions and read and see what we can do. And that's something that I need to do. So I don't sound like a hypocrite, on this camera, trying to, I'm trying to educate myself and spread the message just as well as for those that don't understand who they are or understand the history. So this is why I like reading and want to understand certain things. But no, I think that's crazy, and it's funny. We have, we like to spend this $20 bill, Andrew Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Which was a slave owner. So yeah. So like I say to people all the time, man, history is important. It's we got to know who we are, man. Because people, they don't want to teach you nothing. But I just wanted to say thank you for anybody that has watched any of my videos. I appreciate the love. Subscribe to my channel if you want to. You would have to type in Russell Mills, May 20th.